Hey, Jules Blessed Vegan, and as always, welcome to my channel. And for those of you who are new, I know you can benefit. People, we are in the middle of a self-care challenge, and every day it's something, right? To take a moment for yourself. It doesn't cost any money. It's just, taking that focused moment of saying, I matter. And some of it's health related, and some of it is all kinds of health, right? So the physical, the spiritual, the emotional. And yesterday I did one on oil, which I thought was really important in recognizing how oil affects our bodies. Because people in the health community will say, oh my gosh, pour on the olive oil, pull on the, whatever, a coconut oil. Those things are good outside of your mouth. Like, it's great to use coconut oil on your skin. I use it all the time. It's great to use olive oil in certain ways, but in your body, not so much, It's controversial. This one, our goal for tomorrow, is salt. So the thing is, people don't realize that the table salt that you sprinkle on your food is almost of no consequence in the body. It's the hidden salts, if you actually read the sodium. And so tomorrow's goal, and again, ideally, in the perimeter of the store where nothing is packaged and they don't have to give the ingredients for an apple or a head of lettuce, which of course is ideal, but if anything is packaged, you have to be aware of that sodium. So I have a fantastic article. I love saying that. This is actually from Pritikin Longevity Center. Everybody wants longevity, right? And it says the dangers of salt is more than just a blood pressure problem. A lot of people are aware of that. But let's see what's up. What are the dangers of salt? Most of us know that a salt-rich diet can raise blood pressure, which can raise our risk of heart attacks, strokes, and other woes. But for some people, a high salt intake does not lead to high blood pressure or hypertension. These would be the lucky ones if hypertension were the only negative result of eating a high salt diet, but it's not. In a review article in the Journal of American College of Cardiology, and of course cardiology is all things of the heart, the authors concluded that even in the absence of an increase in blood pressure, excess dietary sodium can adversely affect target organs, including the blood vessels, heart, kidneys, and brain. I remember when I was a little girl, and God bless them 1,000 times, I don't know if we knew any better, but we would get slugs, right? Which is kind of like a snail without the shell, in the house sometimes, and we were told to pour salt on them. And when we would pour salt, their poor little bodies would shrivel right up and they would die, like it was an instant dehydration type thing. And of course, God has probably long since forgiven me for not only the lack of knowledge at the time, but certainly never doing it again, right? So it says, the scientists led by William Farquhar, who's a PhD at the University of Delaware, point out that most Americans need a mere 500 milligrams of sodium daily for fluid balance and a stable internal environment. I mean, we do need a certain amount. But unfortunately, most of us consume far more, about 6 times as much, 3,000 or 3,200 milligrams of sodium daily. This is more than double the 1,500 milligram maximum per day recommended by the health organization, like the American Heart Association. For more than 5 decades, a maximum of 1,500 milligrams of sodium daily has been the recommended amount for things like the Pritikin eating plan. The dangers of salt and blood vessels. Elevated sodium levels can negatively affect the function of the inner lining of the blood vessels, called the endothelium. And the last thing we want to do is foul up our endothelium. Of course. It says in an in-depth textbook on cell biology, molecular biology of the cell, almost all tissues depend on a blood supply, and the blood supply depends on the endothelial cells. The endothelium introduces all kinds of chemicals like nitric acid, which controls how well our blood vessels expand and contract. Put simply, we want blood vessels with good elasticity. Without it, they can't stretch well with each pulse. They stiffen, making it harder for the heart to pump blood throughout the body, and eventually the heart wears out. It's called heart failure. Okay, so one of the endothelium's other key jobs is releasing factors that cut down on platelet stickiness, which helps ensure that our red blood cells flow smoothly. Like traffic on an unclogged freeway. Would that be true? When the endothelium is malfunctioning, the result of too much salt as well as other lifestyle-related factors like high insulin levels, high LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, and high blood glucose, it becomes a breeding ground for inflammation, cholesterol plaque buildup, and cardiovascular disease. So in the brain, sensitized sympathetic neurons in the heart increase left ventricular hypertrophy. In the kidney, decreased oh my gosh, please. I'm a kidney girl. I know what GFR is. You can say it, Juliana. Glomerular. What am I having so much trouble with that? Glomerular. Glomerular. Thank you. Don't get me started on the stress going on in my life right now. Glomerular filtration rate, the GFR. Increased protein excretion, which is not good. Protein in the blood is a problem. And for blood vessels, it's impaired endothelial function and increased arterial stiffness. Again, not good. All right, so dangers of salt in the heart. The high blood pressure is a major risk factor for left ventricular hypertrophy, which is the enlargement of the muscle tissue that makes up the wall of the heart's main pumping chamber. But research has found that high sodium intake may increase left ventricular wall thickness independent of high blood pressure. For example, in a study of healthy adults with normal blood pressure or minimal hypertension, those with the highest sodium excretion had significantly greater diagnoses of left ventricular hypertrophy. Having left ventricular hypertrophy, and forgive me if I'm saying that wrong, can lead to multiple heart-related problems, including arrhythmia, which is the abnormal heart rhythm, heart attack, sudden cardiac arrest, which is a sudden loss of the heart function, and heart failure, which is an inability for the heart to pump enough blood throughout the body. All of this from salt-related. Dangers of salt in the kidneys. Praise God, I'm not a salt girl, but I certainly have to watch sodium for anything that's pre-packaged, right? One of the ways doctors assess how well our kidneys are working is with a test called the glomerular filtration rate. I just say GFR. Glomeruli are tiny sieves in the kidney that filter waste from the blood. The higher our glomerular filtration rate, the better our kidneys are getting rid of waste. And again, someone my age would expect to have like 95 to 100 function. Mine recently was 58. Praise God, it's up to 62. And through better choices, it'll go up again. But it was at one time 32. And I was headed to dialysis. Studies have found that a high salt intake, even with only a minimal rise in blood pressure, can lead to decreased rates of glomerular filtration, which are a sign of chronic kidney disease. And if not checked, kidney failure. High sodium intake also means increased protein excretion by the kidneys, and there's protein, unfortunately, in my blood, which can lead to heart and kidney disease. I have no signs of cholesterol. I have no signs of heart disease, but I can't kid myself. I have got to get this weight off, and I have to be just acutely aware of helping my kidneys out. The good news, sodium restriction has been shown to reduce both protein excretion and blood pressure in people with hypertension. The dangers of salt on the brain. Still further, the authors of the newly published review of the Journal of the American College of Cardiology point out that a high salt intake may negatively affect the brain. Eating excess salt causes the sympathetic nervous system to overreact to stressful situations, pumping out chronically high levels of stress hormones. I don't know why. One moment, please. I'm having technical difficulties where everything is deciding to pop up right now, and it's like, really, why? There's like so no need for this. I don't know how to tell this thing, but no, I'm not interested in whatever it is you're trying to sell me. You know that idea that just nothing is free. Information isn't free. Whatever you're reading is just not free. Okay, so it says this increased responsiveness has been associated with an increased blood pressure variability, even without an elevation in average blood pressure. Increased blood pressure variability means we're prone to having short-term spikes in blood pressure, which physicians had traditionally thought were benign, as long as overall blood pressure were normal. But more and more, science is finding that increased blood pressure variability in and of itself is associated with an increased risk of cardiovascular events and death. The dangers of salt, bottom line, and I'm a bottom line kind of girl. We now have many reasons beyond high blood pressure to maintain a sodium intake of no more than 1,500 milligrams daily. The solution appears clear and simple. Stop adding salt to food. And again, the table salt, yeah, it's a little bit of it, but the sodium content in food is the huge problem. Educators at the Pritikin Longevity Center always point out, as did William S. Weintraub, an MD, Weintraub, one of the co-authors of the review, it cautions it's more challenging than simply throwing away your salt shaker, straight up. Approximately 70% of the sodium in our diets comes from processed foods, including items that we don't typically think of as salty, such as breads and cereals. Also, restaurant food typically contains more salt than dishes prepared at home. And certainly many of us have developed a serious craving for salted foods and find low salt or salt-free versions unappetizingly bland. That's why detoxifications like the 1 and 2 week stays, and so it's an ad for Pritikin, are so valuable. You know what? I just really say that you want to use many flavors, all the different spices and flavors you can get, and your body will be very pleased and not necessarily miss the salt. And also naturally salty things like celery, which is naturally salty, seaweed, naturally salty. So there are some components you can put in your food that will help satiate you. And, no, it'll never be salt. But there's ways to get rid of that craving. Anyway, that's our goal tomorrow. Can you refrain from not only adding salt to your food, but can you also check that sodium and see, are you exceeding 1,500 milligrams a day? You may very well be. All right, my friends, like if you like, join us if you haven't subscribed. Let me know in the comments below how I may support you. And until we talk again, best of all, know that you're blessed.